Hey guys, my name is Kay, and welcome back to the sad story of Emmeline Burns. In the last episode, we found out how Emmeline and Cornelia are close, and we've left off with Philip being in Emmeline's room. So let's get started. Emmeline stared at her father with wide eyes. He looked back at her, and Emmeline could tell, despite the dark, that he was just as surprised, if not more, than she was. Had his face always looked so lined, his mouth so drawn? Perhaps the shadows were playing tricks on her eyes, but he looked far older than his 44 years. Emmeline swallowed. All of a sudden, her throat felt dry. "Father, is something wrong?"
Nothing's wrong, Emmy. Nothing at all."
But he did not look at her face, and he stuttered when he spoke. Why did he sound so frightened? Had something bad happened? Emmeline could not think of any other reason why he would be in her room at such an hour, looking so very tired. No, tired did not even begin to describe it. He looked haggard, as though on the brink of death, and his hands would not stop shaking, even when he clenched them into fists. Emmeline sat up in bed, the covers falling about her body like a funeral shroud, and looked at her father with concern. "It isn't Mother, is it? Is she sick?"
Your mother. She is fine, Emmy. You should be sleeping now."
"Oh." A pause. "And why are you not asleep, Father? Could you not?"
"No, there is something I have to do."
"At this hour?"
"Yes, it is of utmost importance. I don't imagine you would understand."
Emmeline flinched. Her father's voice was strangely hard, despite the nervous stammer, and she was not used to him talking to her in such a way. Maybe other girls' fathers spoke in such terse, clipped terms. Cornelia's father sometimes did, when Beatrice wasn't there to chastise him. But not her father, not Philip Burns. There was no warmth in his voice, no tenderness. It was as though he were speaking to a stranger, rather than his dear daughter, his priceless jewel, his lovely little Emmeline. "I may not understand what it is you wish to do, Father, but are you sure I can't help?"
"No, nobody can."
"But—"
"I appreciate the offer, Emmy, but it is far too late."
Her father swallowed. Emmeline could hear it. It sounded painful, as though he were attempting to choke down a lead bullet or a piece of steel shrapnel. I do not understand. If you do not believe I can help you, why did you come into my room? What is it you wish to discuss with me, Father?"
Oh God.
Philip's shoulders shook. It sounded like he was trying to stem a flow of oncoming tears, though he was not entirely successful. He bit down on his lower lip, but moisture still sparkled in the corners of his eyes, threatening to spill down his cheeks like April rain. If Grandmother Patience were here, she would have mocked him. She always had done when Philip was a child. Perhaps that is why Philip never visited Grandmother Patience. She made him feel like a young boy again, small, stupid, and utterly insignificant. That was why Philip had gone into banking, though he was not suited for such a cutthroat industry. He didn't have the knack for it, never had done. Grandmother Patience had said as much, but he was determined to prove her wrong. He wanted, for once in his life, to make her proud. And look what that had cost him. His wealth, his reputation, and now, worst of all, his family too. But there was no going back now. Father, are you all right? What's wrong?
Emmeline, oh my dear Emmy, I am sorry. I am so sorry. I tried to be a good father, Emmy. I really did try. I wanted to be kind. I wanted to be fair. I had no intentions of treating you like my parents treated me, but I was incapable of doing it. In the end, all went wrong. I thought I knew what I was doing. I thought I was succeeding. And for a while, maybe I was. Now, I realize that I was foolish fantasy dreamt by a foolish man. My mother was right. I should have been drowned when I was younger. I would have saved you all so much trouble. It would have made everything so much easier.
Father? Emmeline got to her feet, her bare toes curling against the wooden floorboards, and took a few steps forward. Are you not feeling well? We can call for the physician if you would like. If only you would sit down. Look how much you are trembling.
No.
Philip shook his head mechanically, back and forth like a tin soldier, his words spoken in an almost frenzied fervor.
The physician cannot help now. Nothing can help. We're done for, Emmeline. You and I, and your mother too. This is it. This is the end.
The end of what, exactly?
Our money is gone, Emmeline. I made a terrible mistake, and now everything is gone. The bubble burst, and we lost it all. Every single thing.
Emmeline stared at her father, her mouth open. She did not know what to do, what to say. What could she say? She was only 14 years old, and she had always been told by her mother that women had no such place in the world of business. It was only natural when they could not understand facts and figures or tables of numbers. Beatrice Linton was the exception rather than the rule. Beatrice Linton could do anything. She could have probably wrestled a bear to death with her own 2 hands, if need be, but Emmeline could not. She was only a young girl, standing in her bedroom in her winter nightgown, shivering like a leaf, and she did not know what to do. But she did not need to ponder her own powerlessness for much longer.
I'm sorry, Emmy. I'm so sorry. I let you down. And now, this is the only thing I can do to make amends.
Father? Why you... But Emmeline was not able to finish her question. And that is because, at that moment, Philip Burns closed the distance between them and held his hand around his daughter's throat. His fingers dug into her skin, and Emmeline could not breathe. First, it was the shock that drew the air out of her lungs, but then it was the pressure about her throat, choking her. She could hardly believe it. How could her father, who had never raised a hand to her in his life, who had never raised so much in his voice,
even contemplate carrying out such a hideous action. But he was. He really was going to kill her. Emmeline felt herself growing faint. She wondered, idly, if dark purple bruises would be left around her throat when Philip let go, a fairy's circle made of mushrooms. Her head swam, her legs gave way beneath her, and she fell backwards onto her bed. Still, Philip's fingers did not budge. They remained upon her throat, fixated with the gruesome task they had been charged with. It was almost as though Philip Burns had split in two. One half remained focused on the murder of his own dear daughter, his beloved Emmy, while the other, appalled by his actions, looked away with disgust. Maybe he should have poisoned her nightly mug of hot cocoa instead. Then he wouldn't have had to bear the witness to look on her face, as the life was slowly choked out of her tiny body. "I'm sorry, Emmy. I'm so sorry." And he was, too. His cheeks went wet with tears, and more tears kept falling. Some of them splashed against Emmeline's cheeks, but this offering of remorse made little difference. Emmeline was still dying. She had been dying for around 2 minutes now, though it felt like it had been far longer, and her heart was already starting to stammer inside her chest. "I am doing it for you, Emmy. It's for the greater good, I promise. I cannot understand the thought of my little girl going to the workhouse. I just couldn't. I... But Philip did not know what else to say. He doubted it would have made much of a difference. Emmeline stared up at the ceiling blankly, her eyes a vast sea of white, her mouth hanging open. Her arms and legs were limp, and though her body was warm, it did not move. It could not. Philip removed his hands from Emmeline's throat, but Emmeline did not stir. Her eyes remained open, unfixed, misty with death. "Emmy. Oh, my Emmy. My little Emmy." With a choked sob, Philip pulled his dear little girl, who is now a very dead little girl, into his arms and wept. After that, Philip Burns killed himself. He set the house ablaze, then slit his throat with a knife. Torching the house may seem like something of a waste, but if he had not, he would have been buried with his wife and child. He had to make it look like it was an accident. Of course, Emmeline was not there to witness that, but she found out in due time. And that was the end of the story, the sad story of Emmeline Burns. I open and close my mouth, but no sound comes out. I don't know what to say. I had already suspected it. Vague speculations about her being an internet celebrity aside, but I have no doubts left in my mind after hearing Emily's story. This girl was not Emily. She knew she was no Emily from the moment she introduced herself. Emmeline holds one hand to her throat, rubbing it gently as though nursing a cold. I wish he had not choked me. I imagine he did it because he thought it would be less violent than stabbing me, but it took so long to die, 3 whole minutes. Worst of all, I could still think during that time. I could grieve. I could suffer. It gave me enough time to form regrets, and maybe that is why I could not die properly. Emmeline sighs, resting a hand against the top of her own gravestone. Unlike the ghost in films, her hand doesn't pass through it. Instead, her fingers make contact, firm and solid, and I even see her shiver when the darkness of the stone permeates her pale skin. Maybe Grandmother Patience was right. Father does not have the willpower required to see things through until the end, not even murder. I suppose I should congratulate him for trying, though. He really did try. It hurt horribly. I open my mouth once more, but I don't know what to say. How can I reply to that? What must I have felt like being betrayed so deeply by your own dad? I don't know, because I don't have one of my own. Of course, this isn't true in the strictest sense of the word. I am not a product of divine conception, and a human man did have a hand in my existence. I don't feel like I have a dad, though. Mom never talks about him, and I never thought to ask. I know Mom doesn't like thinking about Saul Andrews, or that git, as she calls him when she is in a charitable mood. She calls him far worse than she is not, when she is not, and I don't like thinking about him either. I don't have much to think about anyway. I've never met him before. I've only seen his face in photographs, and Mom threw most of those away. I can't say I blame her, given how he reacted to the news of her pregnancy. Apparently, he tried to coerce her into having an abortion, and when that didn't work, he turned tail and fled. Didn't even leave a note. What a git. I always thought I should hate Saul, but I don't even know him well enough for that. Instead, all I feel is an absence of feeling, really. Apathy. Now, I can't help but wonder who has it worse, even though I know making such a comparison is unfair. Is it Emmeline, whose dad loved her dearly to such an extent it wrung the life right out of her lungs? Or is it me, whose father loved me so little he ran away before I was born and never tried to talk to me? They're both bad in their own ways, and if Mom had bowed to Saul Andrews' wishes, I would have been dead, too. The fact remains, however, that I am not. Emmeline, meanwhile, is. Do you resent him? I do not know. I've had a lot of time to think about it, but I still can't come to the conclusion. Trying to describe it with words would seem inadequate somehow, but I am upset. I wish it had never happened. I know Father thought he had to do it, and I am sure it took a good deal of thought before he was able to even consider killing me and my mother. He was not a violent person. I know it might sound cliched, but he did not like even killing moths and spiders. And yet, a person like him, spineless, Mother Patience said, was still able to murder his wife and child, then slit his own throat. Our financial situation must have been bad if he thought this was the only way he could save us. I don't profess to fully understand it myself, but there must have been a reason behind his actions. Men, not even the most hot-headed men, do not murder their wives and daughters on sudden whims or whispers of fairies. He must have been in a difficult position, so I feel some sympathy, but at the same time, it just isn't fair. He never even asked me what I wanted, and I certainly did not want to die. I wanted to stay alive. There were so many more things I wanted to do. I don't know what things I wanted to do, not exactly, but I had my whole life ahead of me. I thought I could think about it later. I thought I would have enough time. But I was naive. I just wanted to spend more time with Cornelia, even though I was young and I did not understand a great deal about the world around me. I know I loved her. I loved her with all of my heart. And then my father killed me, and that was the end of that. At least, it should have been. I should have stopped loving her the moment my heart stopped beating. But things are not always so simple. And do you know what happened to Cornelia? Bits and pieces. She was upset after I died, I think. She cried a lot. Then she grew older and was able to put what happened behind her. She'll be dead now. She must have been dead for years and years. Emmeline smiles bitterly. Almost as long as I have. You didn't try to talk to her? I did, but she could not see me. I tried my hardest, but it all felt so pointless. I could see her face, but I could not dry her tears. I wanted to tell her I was all right as a dead girl can be anyway, but there was nothing I could do. In the end, I decided to leave her alone. She had moved on, and I knew I should too. Following Cornelia did not make her happy, and it definitely did not make me happy. It just made me feel even worse, even more alone. I have not left this graveyard in almost a century. There has been no reason to leave. I just stayed here and slept. A century might seem like a long time, but it slipped rather quickly. Nobody could see me, so nobody bothered me. At least, until today. You are the first person I have met during the last 150 years who can see me. It is most peculiar. Well, I am quite a peculiar person. I have always liked graveyards. Ah, yes, you told me that earlier. I remembered. You don't think I'm weird, do you? Perhaps a little, but I am rather happy about it. If you were not weird, as you said, you would not be able to see me, and I would still be alone. This might not be because of me, though. What do you mean? You can see me with your own eyes, with your own two eyes, correct? You have not stolen anybody else's, have you? No, of course not. It's just, I owe my life to the people who came before me. Maybe these eyes were a gift from Rose Bradford. Rose? She's one of my ancestors. Apparently, she was a medium. That's what Mother says anyway. Yet, if these eyes were a gift from Rose Bradford, the self-proclaimed White Witch of Beverly, they haven't been of much use until now. I've never seen a ghost before, even though I've been to countless graveyards in my time. I have, however, always been strangely adept
to the art of finding dead bodies, even when they're buried deep beneath the earth. Does this mean something? Anything? Nothing at all? Maybe the whole world is crawling with ghosts, thicker than the fog that creeps across the ground, and they just never wanted to make my humble acquaintance. Perhaps they were hiding from me, sitting in the branches of the trees, or peeking out from behind the stained glass church windows, whispering to themselves. Why would they approach me for help anyway? I'm only a young girl, only 14. But Emmeline did. Was there a reason for that? Now that I think about it, the her you said I resembled. Oh, yes, well, you really do look like Cornelia. It took me quite by surprise. For a few moments, I thought you really might be her, but I was wrong, of course. You are not Cornelia. You are your own person. Variety. No, my name isn't Variety. We both know that. And I don't know if I am my own person either. How could I be, given my name, Toma, a diminutive of Thomas, picked because my real name was stolen 2 weeks before I was born? Andrews, a last name given to me by my dad, not as a gift, but as an afterthought, like a balled-up pair of socks for Christmas. My name was defined by men I'd never met before, a dead grandfather, an absent father. It doesn't belong to me. Nothing belongs to me. At the same time, I'm nothing more than a composite of old names and long-lost ancestors, Bradfords and Bowers and Kendalls and Lintons and... Wait a minute. Linton? Emmeline, can I ask you something? Of course. Nothing would make me happier. I haven't had much of a chance to talk to others over the last century. I swallow. My lips feel cracked and dry. My fingertips twitch. Cornelia's last name. What was it? Why, it was Linton. It has been such a long time since I last saw her, but I would never forget that. Linton, was it? Cornelia Linton. It could have been a coincidence, of course, but I don't know if I believe in coincidences, not after everything that's happened today. That was the reason why Emmeline approached me. She thought it was Cornelia. Maybe, in a sense, I am, or at least a small part of me is. And it is, with the sudden realization that I feel a light dawn upon me. It's not a real light. The sun remains firmly, stubbornly hidden behind the clouds, but it is a light nonetheless. It is sudden understanding. A whole wealth of memories, a treasure chest of memories shared by the Lintons lake, of girlish laughter and raspberry lemonade and kisses that taste of carbonation that I should have no knowledge of. These scenes should be superior tainted, like old photographs found in the back of a charity store from years gone well and truly by. I've never even been kissed before. How'd I know what that feels like? But I can imagine it. In fact, I don't need to imagine it, because it really did happen, not to the current me, but to one of my relatives in another time, in a place not so far, very far away.
Cornelia?
Emmeline stares at me, or is it me, with wide eyes, hardly daring to believe. I can't entirely believe it, either. My body is still mine, but it's not at the same time. I can sense another presence residing inside me, blown in by the cold autumn breeze. It lingers, hazy and ephemeral, shy to make itself known, but desperate to speak. I feel my heart pounding, but the sensation is strangely unfamiliar. My fingers tremble, or are they hers? I open my mouth to speak, but another person's voice comes out.
Emmy? Emmy, is it really you? Cornelia, I?
Emmeline presses a hand against her mouth, trying to stifle a gasp of disbelief. But isn't that unnecessary? How can a ghost breathe? The air was choked out of her lungs a long, long time ago. But now, more than 100 years after her death, Emmeline has a whole new reason to be breathless.
I thought you already passed on. Even after you died, I was never able to find you. At any rate, your body wasn't even buried here.
That's right. I was buried where I died, in Wiltshire. I was 73.
And you died peacefully?
Yes, I am not a ghost. I had no regrets, so I had no reason to come back. And yet, right now, you... Well, this was rather unexpected, to tell you the truth. I had been resting peacefully, minding my own business, when, all of a sudden, I found myself here, inside this body. It must have been years since I looked so young. I must apologize to the young girl whose body I have stolen. It is awfully rude, and it isn't intentional. Don't worry about that, Cornelia. I'm sure Variety wouldn't mind. Variety? That's strange. I didn't think that was her name. At any rate, I must thank Miss Variety for her kindness. Sharing one's identity with somebody else is quite a gesture. It might be to the other people, but it isn't to me. I already know what it feels like to share my identity with somebody else. I've been living my whole life in Amella Miller's shadow. Compared to that, a little light possession is nothing. This outfit is hardly appropriate, though. Cornelia flushes, tugged at the hem of my school skirt. Sorry. There's rather too much leg on display. And what about the wind? I'm surprised the girls of today don't all catch their deaths of cold. Hee. You sound like a crotchety old lady, Cornelia. I am an old lady, and you are too. Stop trying to act so cute. Emmeline giggles, peering up at Cornelia with that familiar mischievous grin. It's the same grin she wore 150 years past, during the lazy summer days by the lake, when she would press kisses against Cornelia's lips and recite snatches of misremembered poetry to her. But you still blush like a fair maiden, Cornelia. You didn't change at all. And neither did you, Emmy, though I hoped that you might. That attitude of yours was always so unseemly. Mother agreed. Beatrice Linton wouldn't know what fun was if it smacked her across the face. My mother was a very commendable person. She might have been a little strict, but she was not without her good points. She was awfully upset when she heard what happened to you, Emmy. Yes, what happened to poor little Emmy. And you, Cornelia, did you miss me too? Do you really need to ask that question? I just wanted to make sure. I know that you cried a good deal, and that upset me, but I don't know. I wanted you to move on and be happy. I really, truly did, but at the same time, I was also scared and jealous too. You were really my first love. I suppose you were my last love too, and all the loves that could have come in between. I just don't want to be replaced. You are my one and only, and I want it to be the same for you. I know you lived a lot longer than I did, and I know I'm being selfish, but when I think about you loving somebody other than me, it hurts. It hurts so much. I can hardly stand it. Emmy. Emmeline's shoulders shake, and though her eyes were devoid of tears, maybe crying is a luxury not afforded to ghosts. I'm sure she would have been weeping if she could. She looks fragile, like a single push might shatter every single bone in her body. Is that why she avoided Cornelia, though she desperately wanted to see how she was? Was it because she was afraid? But she can't run away now, not anymore. Cornelia takes a few steps forward, slow and stumbling in her unfamiliar body. When she reaches Emmeline, she links her hands and squeezes gently. Hee hee hee. Emmeline giggles, wiping stray tears that never had the chance to fall from the corners of her eyes. Well, this is certainly new. You would never have been so bold in the past, Nellie. Perhaps not, but I have grown up. I lived a long life. 73 years, was it? A nod. 73 years. It is an awfully long time to remain obsessed with the skinny young girl who snuck kisses from you in the summer, is it not? Indeed, it's an awfully long time, and yet, despite that, I was never able to forget you. It would be impossible, even if I wanted to. Cornelia? Cornelia bows her head, perhaps in an attempt to hide her threatening blush, but it does no good. She always used to blush around Emmeline, and that hasn't changed. I got married when I was 18. It was a match my mother arranged. She was always so officious, so organized, so practical. I wonder why your father did not ask her for advice during the stock market crash. She could have helped. I think he would have been too embarrassed. It was all grandmother Patience's fault. She was not a particularly nice woman, by all accounts. That is really sad. It could have been avoided so easily.
That is what I think too. Such thoughts do not do us much good now, though. No, I suppose they do not. So, what about your view? Emmeline attempts to smile, though it looks forced, slightly strained at the edges. Was he a good looker, Cornelia? Did he sweep you off your feet, just like a prince in a fairy tale? Of course not. He was a match my mother chose for me. Do you think she would pair her dear daughter with the feckless sod? So he was sensible, was he? Very sensible. He was twice my age, and he was already starting to lose his hair, but he was rich, and had land, and could afford to look after me. To my mother, that was the most important thing. And not your happiness? According to my mother, money is the root of all happiness. I would like to disagree, but... Emmeline looks down at herself, smiling sadly. Given money can be blamed for the sorry states of affairs my families found themselves in, perhaps there is a germ of truth to that. Perhaps. And I was happy with him, in a sense. You loved him? No, I did not love him. He was too old, and we were too dissimilar. We did not have a single thing in common, fortunately. He was not unkind, and that is more than can be said for some men, I suppose. Oh, I'm sorry, Cornelia. You do not need to be sorry. I may not have been happy, but I was not unhappy. My life was rather comfortable, all things considered. But you did not forget about me. No, I did not. I could not. You really did mean the world to me back then, Emmy, and I loved you with all of my heart. Only back then? Well, even now, I still care for you. I never stopped caring. I just had to stop remembering. Oh, Cornelia, if my heart had not been stopped, I'm sure it would have skipped a beat. And my own heart is pounding rather uncomfortably, though it does not truly belong to me. I hope I am not causing this young girl any undue strain. You always did worry too much, Nellie. You used to be so scared that your mother would find out about us. You still let me kiss you, though. Yes, I was scared, but I am glad for the time we spent together. Had I known it would be cut short, I would have confessed to you sooner. Say, Cornelia? Yes, what is it? I am afraid I must ask, for curiosity compels me to do so. Was I a better kisser than your husband? Well, Hee. It's fine if you cannot answer. It was quite some time since we last kissed one another. Perhaps you need to refresh your memory? I do not think I would be entirely adverse to that. Well then, shall we? My heart pounds. Or is it Cornelia's? Perhaps it belongs to both of us. Though she has been dead for some
150 years. Emmeline's lips were soft and warm, sweet and gentle, filled with a deep sense of yearning. Sorry. I wonder how long Emmeline has wanted to kiss Cornelia. How long has she been sleeping in this graveyard, dreaming unfulfilled dreams of a time gone by, when she was young and happy and very much alive. Maybe she thought her dream would never come true. That was why she consigned herself to dreaming, and not to awake from her sleepy stupor, a ghostly girl isolated from the rest of the world. And now she has finally managed to make her dream come true. Is there any reason for her to haunt this graveyard further? Surely, all of her regrets have been wiped away, like the spring sunshine melting the winter snow. She may never understand her dad's motivations for committing such a terrible crime, but I doubt that was the real regret that kept her body tied to this earth. Instead, it was Cornelia. For Emmeline, it was always Cornelia. And we're gonna stop there. So, yeah. Thanks for watching, and hopefully I'll see you soon. Bye bye.